All right. Hi, everyone. Happy January. Hope you all are enjoying this wonderful whale-friendly weather that we're having. um, let's see. Welcome to the Virginia Plastic Pollution Prevention Network, January 2022 meeting. My name is Christina. I own Ecomaniac Company, and I'm the director and co-founder for the Virginia Plastic Pollution Prevention Network. As Katie mentioned a few minutes ago, if you haven't already done so, please add your name and your affiliation in the chat box so we have a record of everyone that was here. We are recording. And let's see, I think most of you, I recognize most of your names. So I don't think we have anyone new on here today, but anyway, this network is all about bringing groups together, groups that are in the state of Virginia that are working on the issue of plastic pollution and plastic pollution prevention. And we have over 100 members now, and last count about 70 different organizations that are represented in our member list. We are still working on our website. It allows for you all to use the forums to communicate with each other. You can also find other members so that you can communicate with other members of the network. And this is just a great way for us to collaborate and cooperate. The network was co-founded by myself and Katie with Clean Virginia Waterways and with the support of the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program. And we are over a year and a half old now. So any comments, complaints, compliments, and questions that you might have about the network, the website, and other ways that we can help it continue to grow. I hope all of you made it to our December meeting where we talked about the concept of reuse. Especially in the food industry. We had guest speakers from Upstream, Rethink Disposable, and what was the other one, Katie, do you remember? We had three great guest speakers. Anyway, the video is on our website, and I encourage you to go back and watch it. It was open to the public, and that actually gave us the opportunity to get the emails of about 100 new interested parties, people that are interested in the concept of plastic pollution prevention. So when you get that newsletter that I try to send out once a month, it's public facing newsletter, and it's going out now to over 250 people. So like I said, our network is growing, our website is growing, our contact list is growing, and hopefully the movement to reduce plastic pollution in the great state Commonwealth of Virginia will continue to grow. Okay, that was long-winded. I'm sorry about that. We're going to keep the rest of the meeting short. Okay, guys. Katie, did you have anything to add to that before we get started?
Nope.
I said plenty. Okay, so we only have 2 speakers today. Not only, I'm sure they're going to be full of lots of great information. Rick Gallagher is, did I say that right, Rick? You're still on mute. Rick's with the VirginiaBottleBill.org website, and we had apparently a little surprise for this year's General Assembly, and Rick is going to tell us all about it.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. Oh, no, I can't. Well,
Rick, I'll make you co-host so you will be able to share your screen, but go ahead and talk while I get that going.
Okay, because I was going to tell you about Oregon. There is a bottle bill that has been introduced into the House by Delegate Hope from Arlington. And unbeknownst to me, you know, I'm off doing my thing and he's doing his. We didn't communicate at all. So he put one forward into the House. And it's not bad. It looks like it's been drafted using the Container Recycle Institute model legislation. And there's a lot of things to like about it. One, it's privately run. It sets up a primary responsible organization, which is usually the distributors, and they run it. So the state does not run it. There are 2 states, California and I think Iowa, that run their programs. In California, it's an absolute dumpster fire because you can't do this really entirely through legislation. You need to be able to make changes and do them fast, and you can't do it through legislation. It has a high deposit limit of 10 cents and 15 cents for the larger bottles. And it's on all containers, regardless of what's in them. The earlier bottle bills went with water and soda, or with beer and soda, because that was what was being made back in the 70s. So consequently, the big rush to bottled water was not captured by an awful lot of the bottle bills. Without going back to the legislative process and adding in water and all that noise. So this goes after everything, and it includes cartons, which are currently really extremely hard to recycle, and pouches, which the only place I know of that recycles pouches is TerraCycle up in New Jersey. So it's ambitious. It does mandate the amount of return centers at the retail level. What they have found in the 50 years of having bottle bills in over 55 places now, that the ease of return is really what makes or breaks the bottle bill. So it mandates it by size. If you're over 30 parking spaces, you're going to have this, return set up. So that's a good thing. It has a goal. It starts out at 85% return and goes up to 90, or it starts out at 75%, and then after a few years, it has to hit 90. And the penalty for not hitting that is that the state takes it over, which I think is a terrible idea. Because if you want to sandbag something, you have the state step in. What Oregon does is they have a penalty, a 10-cent a bottle fee, that if you fall below, I think it's 90%, that primary organization has to pay the state 10 cents a bottle up until the 90%. I think that's the way to go. It doesn't have a handling fee. Most everybody else has a handling fee. And I think with the exception of Oregon, that's the additional fee. You pay 5 cents deposit, but the distributor has to pay 4 or 5 cents to the retailer for every bottle. The distributor doesn't get the handling fee back because it is strictly for the problems and the time and the effort of the grocery store having to deal with all the returns. Our program, the way it's put in the bill, is funded that the primary organization keeps all the unclaimed deposits. So even at 90% return rates, you're still talking probably $40 million, which will cover an awful lot of expenses. And that's modeled after Oregon. So I talked to the guy in Oregon, and I'll see if I can share my screen. I'm not sure why I'm getting that, but if I hit share screen, and then minimize, get the Oregon PowerPoint. I'm just going to show you the Oregon PowerPoint just because it's much more timely. So they are great. They started in 1971. They had started out a nickel. They went to a dime.
Rick, I'm not seeing the PowerPoint. I'm seeing your Zoom screen.
My golly, let me, I don't know.
I think you selected the wrong app to share.
It could be. Share that one.
Here we go. That's right.
Now it says you can see this. So they went with a dime increase. They've expanded it to include all types of beverages. So I'd have $46 million budget, 0 taxpayer dollars. And an important number here is the 532 employees without Oregon, throughout Oregon. Because every bottle bill state has an increase in the number of people it employs. These are, employment engines, and they're good for their local economy. The bottle drop redemption centers, they have a few standalone centers, and the guy says they all do look like that. They're very clean. Saturday mornings, you get a much longer line, of course, but they all have these little reverse vending machines. They're getting away from the reverse vending machines. But these do, you stick them in one at a time, it scans the barcode, it figures out if it's glass or it's plastic, and it sorts them all right behind that wall. So the bottle bill generates a high grade material that you can reuse. In single stream recycling, you cannot reuse plastic bottles to make new plastic bottles, because people also recycle an awful lot of other plastics like Windex and motor oil, and you cannot use that stuff back in food grade material. Because these machines sort all the water bottles and the soda bottles and they're empty, it crushes them, and what the manufacturer gets back is complete food grade materials. It can go bottle back to bottle. The same with the glass. And here's where Oregon stands out. In the green bag, you can see the guy holding up his little green bag. They've got these kiosks in shipping containers mostly. And you can see the guy putting it in the shipping container, and there's a little white tag on it that's got his own unique barcode. You put it in the bag drop or the bottle drop, and they come and they empty it out once a day or every other day. They take it back to the warehouse, they count it. The money goes into your account right then. It's all online. It can go directly into your checking account. A lot of people have chosen charities. This is very fast and efficient. And you can see they've got some standalones. They got 59 locations operating now. And in the smaller places, you get this little shipping container. And this has proven to be very popular. On the other side, there's a bag drop. And what they have found out is that the centers where you bring back your individual bottles and you stand there in the lobby and you put the bottle into the machine, nobody really likes doing that unless you're a young kid. This is much faster. It takes a minute or two, automatically goes into your checking account. And this is the way to go. It doesn't have the problem with the homeless and the crowds. This is very fast and clean, and this is what they're moving towards. So in the warehouse, you can see all the green bags. They've only had the program up and running for a few years. In the pile of green bags, you can see every now and then a blue bag, which is done for charities. And that is growing exponentially. They're on pace. They did over 11 million bags. They counted that. They did. So they're growing, and that's huge. And this is where Oregon is leading. The number of bags or containers redeemed through the bag is 90%, almost 90%. You can see the share of the large retailers and the convenience store is dropping dramatically. They don't want to hassle with it. People don't want to hassle with them. So the bag drop is the way to go. And the nice thing about the Virginia proposed bill is it does have those bag drop locations set up. So there's a cute little map of Oregon with all sorts of redemption centers, spotted all over the place. The blue bags, the charities, they say this really works. For the people that don't want to participate, the charities can often get them to participate and say, look, if you don't want to do it for yourself, that's fine, but do it for us. And he says they're pretty tenacious, which is a good thing. But then, you can see the graph at the bottom. They're making money hand over fist by doing this. This one charity, Poplandia, raised about $50,000. So, and then there's what motivates everybody. They have a 97% approval rating with the Oregon public. And that's huge. Vermont, I think, has an 88%. So bottle bills are very popular with the public, which is a good thing. All the material is processed in Oregon, with I think the exception of aluminum, because they don't have a smelter in Oregon, so they have to ship that out. And most of it goes back into bottles. Not all of it, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to haul it all back to a bottle, just you get rid of it locally. What they are doing is they're also encouraging the refillables. California just came out and is trying to change their law, because their law says when you put your bottle in that machine, we have to destroy the bottle. That way it can't be turned in again, and that will cut down on fraud. What nobody thought about is that you're also crushing all the refillables. So California is trying to overcome that hurdle, but it's got to be done through the legislature. So you got to go back. I am not sure where the Virginia law is on the refillables, but if I had to bet my mortgage payment, I would say that we allow refillables. The refillable participant is growing, and that's it. Where I think that the Virginia bottle bill really falls short is that it doesn't require a penalty, a monetary penalty, if the primary organization doesn't hit their 90% goal. It just says the state will step in and take it over. I think a fine is much more appropriate. So when I was talking to the guy from Oregon the other week, he said the less legislative involvement you have, the better. Oregon does not require a deposit. Their law just says when you bring it back into the retailer, you get your dime back. So it's the distributor that put in the deposit. They are getting away from every retailer take it back. What they have found out in 50 years is if they put enough of those parking lot kiosks around, that the people will use those, and you don't need to hassle every small retailer about taking the bottles back. In Oregon, because of the popular support, you can get 20% more back as a bonus in Safeway and Kroger. If you, on your app, say you want to, you get the Safeway bucks, or you're going to get the Kroger bucks. So they give you a 20% bonus. You can actually make money doing the deposits. There's no real cost to the consumer. I can't legislate Safeway doing that, but it would be nice. So it's popular. So that is pretty much what we are talking about here in Virginia. So I would suggest that everybody, if you're not already a member of the virginiabottlebill.org, you can go in and sign up. What our website does is it takes your contact information, looks up who your legislators are, and sends them an email on your behalf. They only want to hear from their constituents. They don't want to hear from everybody in the state. They certainly don't want to hear from out-of-state people about Virginia problems. So we send out 7 emails. We send them to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the 2 federal senators because of the Breaking Free from Plastic Act and the National Bottle Bill. So they have to know about it. The state senator and the state representative each get an email. And it says that as your constituent, I support a bottle bill. We don't get into the hows and the whys and the details because that's going to be argued about for a long time. But you have to make your legislators know that you support a bottle bill. And our website, once you sign up, once, put in your name, an address, and telephone number, we take care of that for you. We have had, there's a high school and the Virginia Zoo wants to see if they can get a presentation done. So we're going to be out getting a little bit more out there in the community so we can start spreading the word. And that is about it. So if you have any questions, I'll stop my share. And there you go.
Rick, I have to ask, what happens to all those plastic bags?
The plastic bags gets recycled. You have to buy the plastic bags, he said. It's $2 for a box of 10. You get them at whatever retailer, all the grocery stores sell them. They're purposely priced at 20 cents each because if you gave them away free, everybody would use them to line their kitchen trash. You do get the 20 cents back when you put it in. So they have figured that out. To be honest, I think
that was Rick, that was really, really great information. Just to stay on time here, do we have any questions for Rick to elaborate on some of the information he shared? Also, I'll point out that I'm sharing right now the bill number if you want to look it up in the Virginia Legislative Information System. So any questions for Rick?
Rick, if we Googled Oregon bottle bill, we would get this PowerPoint that you just shared?
No, that PowerPoint, I don't have a link to it on my website. That's the Oregon one, and I got it from him. I don't even think it's on the Oregon. It's something that he just developed in the last several months so he could tell the Oregon legislature how well they're doing.
Rick, is that something you could ask if he would allow you to share that? If so, we could
He will
figure out a way to share it.
Yeah, I have to get my web designer to put a link on our website. And frankly, not enough people go to the website on the deep pages to get the web designer up to make every change. So the next couple of weeks, we'll do another big change and we'll get that linked in there.
Yeah, do let us know when it's available because I too would love to see and share some of that information. So that was really great. Any other questions for Rick?
I'm wondering who would be the big opponents? Who would not like this to happen in Virginia?
Coca-Cola, the distributors, it's
Okay.
a change. The Oregon distributors are the biggest proponents of it. They like it. They know it works. They know they save money because they're selling the scrap material back to the same manufacturers. And it keeps the legislative, branch out of their hair. They've got a system. They're making money on it, going well. But it's a change, and our distributors will come out against it. Coca-Cola hates it because I don't know why. The European Coca-Cola independent distributors do like bottle bills in Europe. They think they're great. I think it's just kind of an American thing that, we don't like to be told what to do.
And Cindy, heard that for years, bottle bills in Virginia were fought by retail grocery stores who didn't want to devote a portion of their store space to dirty old cans, dirty old bottles. But it sounds like Oregon has figured a way to overcome that objection.
Right. And, in the 50 years, there's, the reverse vending machines are much cleaner and much nicer. What has changed in the past couple of years is that the manufacturing associations for the glass bottle, the plastic bottle, the cans, they have all come out in strong support of bottle bills because they know that it will add to the bottom line of their members. But it's a change, and it's going to be a fight. So,
and we have Mark Schwingle from the Virginia Aquarium has his hand raised. Mark.
Hi, yeah, thanks. That was a good presentation. I guess one question I have is, I think you mentioned at one point that the initial part of in other words, you did at some point, folks weren't paying the deposit when they bought the product. They were just getting it back when they brought it back. And
when Oregon set up their law in the 70s, I think it was 1972, the Oregon State Legislature did not require a deposit. They just required that if somebody walked into the grocery store, they got their nickel back, or they got a nickel for it. So the distributor said, I'm not giving away a nickel, I'm charging a deposit. And, our bill is set up that we just say that, oh, you have to charge a dime and you'll get a dime back. So theirs is a little less, hand-holding, but it's the same in the end.
well, I guess my question was, if in fact there are places that are not charging a deposit, but they're giving you a deposit, but they're giving you money back when you bring your container back, that and the retailers are not paying that fee, then obviously the distributors have to pay that fee. So they're either raising the cost of the product, or I would assume it's built into the product sale. I don't know. But one way or the other, somebody's paying the fee. So that may be why the distributors are against it. So, but
well, the Oregon distributors figured it out fast that they're not giving somebody a nickel every time they return something without making them pay the nickel first. So they put in the deposit, very quickly. And they figured that was a way to, fund the system.
okay.
So the whole system is funded by the 10% of the people that do not participate, which I think is a brilliant thing. If you're not going to recycle, sure, go ahead. You don't have to, but you will lose your deposit and help create the system.
Well, this has just been really, really great. I'm thinking that we want to revisit this in a few months when we see how this bill survives or doesn't survive through the process of all the subcommittees and committees. But I thank you very, very much for that overview and presentation. And again, I think we should reconvene maybe in February or March to take a look at progress on this.
Okay.
Any other comments, Christina or Rick?
No, I'm interested to see how this all plays out. you know, I was kind of breezing through the website with all the details, and there it's very complicated and complex. So I'll be interested to see how everybody responds to it in General Assembly, and love to see it pass and make it happen. I mean, I know states, and Katie, you've done a paper on this, states that have bottle bills have less bottle litter. So and yeah, there is. So if you scroll back in the chat room all the way to the beginning, I posted the link to the bill. And also, if you haven't signed in the chat room, I need your name and affiliation, so we have a record of everyone being here. And
Actually,
Katie,
Christina, could you post that link again? Anyone who
Sure.
joined late won't be able to see your earlier post. I also want to
gotcha.
show you the Litter Free Virginia website has a legislation tracker. It's not yet been updated for 2022, but this is my go-to place during the legislation period to see how the bills are doing. So here is an example of what you could have seen last year, the 2021 legislative tracker. There's also a document. If you go to Litter Free Virginia and you click this button here, it says click for a full history in spreadsheet form. This is a document actually maintained by Clean Virginia Waterways, my organization, and we have a history of all the bills in the legislature over the years that have to do with litter reduction or recycling, anything that would reduce the amount of plastic pollution in Virginia. We also have not yet updated it for 2022, but it's a great resource. And if you look at the bottom, we've got tabs. One tab is about bottle bills. And you can see the attempts in past years to look at bottle bills. So that's another great resource that I encourage you to check out. And at this point, I guess we should move to our second.
Where do we
part of
get
the
that?
meeting.
Okay, on the Litter Free Virginia site? Great.
Yeah, litterfreeva.org. And if you go to their homepage, and I'm trying to navigate there right now to their homepage. So if you go to Litter Free Virginia or VA, litterfreeva.org, this is their homepage. Are you seeing that, Christina?
Yes.
Yes, their homepage. And then if you go to legislation tracker, and if you click on that, that's where you'll get the list of current legislation. Again, anything that has to do with litter or marine debris or recycling. And so it's a really great resource. And we'll actually ask somebody from that Litter Free Virginia to speak later in this legislative session, which just started last week. All right. Christina, I guess back to you for a moment.
Okay, so looks like everybody has been signing in to the chat room, so we have a record of everyone that's here. I am actually going to have to hop off this call in about 10 minutes. And Katie will finish out with a deep dive into our Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan. But before we go there, I do want to ask, please, 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 I'm trying to make up these newsletters and put content on the website. If you have anything interesting that has to do with plastic pollution in the state of Virginia, even if it's before I asked for it, just forward me emails, interesting articles, any kind of content that I can use for our newsletter and for our website to make it more robust and more informative. Put the Virginia PPPN@gmail.com email into your contact list, so when something comes across your screen, you can just forward it and just be done with it, and I've got it, and we can make a fun and interactive email and newsletter and website for everybody to learn from. So Jim, did you have a question?
No, hey, I was just going to say, I would encourage everybody. Right now, we're in the crazy part of this session because things are dropping all over the place, and we don't have a complete picture. This was a big surprise. This one was a big, pleasant surprise to me. But we've got 3 different EPR bills now that have been dropped. We have this one, so they're starting to drop hot and heavy. So if you see one, say something. So, you know, to this group or to the VCN plastics work group. So we'll be aware of it and we can start working on them.
Right, great. And Jim, could you explain what EPR is for those who aren't familiar with that abbreviation?
It stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. And there are several bills that have been dropped already, 3 to be exact. Mark Keem has dropped one. Lopez has dropped one, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. But anyway, there are 3 out there. I'll put them in the chat. I'll put those bills in the chat as we go along.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Well, I guess at this point, we'll switch to the second presentation that was on our agenda, and that is an update, an overview really, of the newly released Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan. And for those of you who are not familiar, I'm Katie Register. I'm with Clean Virginia Waterways, and we were co-authors of this Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan, along with the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program. And this overview I'm about to present was actually created for a different group by Laura McKay, who manages the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program, and myself. And we got funding to do the work of creating this plan from NOAA. So we very much appreciate their support, as well as the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation also supported this work, which included talking to lots and lots of stakeholders throughout the state of Virginia, so that we made sure that this plan is a consensus document of many, many different organizations that are working to decrease marine debris and litter and plastic pollution. So we had our first Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan released in 2014. And since then, there's been a lot of progress. As you've heard in some of our previous meetings, we've had new laws and new policies in Virginia that pertain to expanded polystyrene and plastic bags and balloons. And then we've had the governor's executive order 77, which all eliminated single-use plastics from universities and many state agencies. There's been lots of collaboration, including this network. This network was called for in the previous Virginia Reduction Plan. And we've also had lots of workshops, yearly workshops for the stormwater industry, and many work groups that have looked and targeted certain kinds of plastic pollution. Another achievement of the original plan was the creation of preventballoonlitter.org and its sister websites. This is a campaign started in Virginia. It's now throughout the Mid-Atlantic. And we've also done a lot of monitoring and research. So there's a lot of achievements from the first plan, but I'm going to focus mostly on the future and the current plan. So the current reduction plan aims to understand, to prevent, and to mitigate various forms of litter and marine debris. And the 4 major goals are: number 1, consumer debris. So in all, there are 60 actions. These are specific actions that we hope to take in the next 2 to 3 to 4, maximum 5 years, to reduce marine debris coming from Virginia. And of those 60 actions, 22 of them are in the consumer debris category. It's by far the most important goal of the Virginia plan. And I'll go into a little bit of detail in a minute on that. The second major goal of the Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan has to do with derelict fishing gear. So this is crab pots, clam nets, fishing line, things like that. And, oops, sorry. This photo is from the Virginia Aquarium. These are actually bits and pieces of fishing gear that get caught on the support of piers, fishing piers. So it's not all commercial. Sometimes people think derelict fishing gear has only to do with commercial fishermen and, you know, the larger nets and crab pots and the whelk pots. But in fact, it can be from individual fisher people too. The third major goal focuses on microplastics and microfibers. And this has fewer actions, but a lot of the actions in this goal have to do with the need for more research. We need more understanding of what are the different types of plastics that end up as microplastics and what are their impacts on the environment, on wildlife, and on human health. The thought is some microplastics will cause more harm than others, but this research needs to be done. And in the creation of the plan, we heard from some microplastic researchers, especially those at the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, and they urged that we don't get legislation ahead of the research, that we need to define and understand the problem. And I think we've seen that happen before, where sometimes a legislation comes up, a legislative solution is proposed, but it's perhaps premature or not well conceived. So at any rate, a lot of this goal calls for more research. And then the fourth major goal of the plan focuses on boats, vessels and watercraft that become abandoned in the environment. This particular photo is of a boat in Virginia that was left at a dock, and you can see that it's half sunk. Others are abandoned on marshes and on top of oyster reefs. And so this goal basically is recommending that the Virginia Abandoned and Derelict Vessel Work Group, which has been meeting now for more than a year, and it's included Coast Guard, all kinds of state, federal, and local government agencies, as well as marinas and boat owners. But at any rate, this action calls for the work of that work group to go to the next step, which is creating policy recommendations to create a Virginia Abandoned and Derelict Vessel program, because Virginia does not have a program in place to deal with this issue, nor does it have funding. So that's just an overview of the top 4 goals. And what I wanted to do now is talk a little bit about how we structured the plan. Underneath each of the major goals, we've got 5 strategies, and the strategies are the same for each of the goals. A lot of our energy is spent on prevention. Strategy number 1 is always prevention through behavior change, through education, and through outreach. The second strategy calls for more research and monitoring. The third strategy focuses on proper disposal and interception. Interception means mostly the storm drains, where a piece of plastic that is on a park property or a parking lot or a road or sidewalk, that moment that it enters a storm drain, we want to look at interception and stopping that plastic and that waste from becoming aquatic and on its way to the ocean. And that strategy also looks at infrastructure. What infrastructure do we need? What infrastructure is lacking in Virginia to deal with this issue? Strategy 4 is always removal. We still need to spend energy and resources removing marine debris. And then the 5th strategy deals with legislation and policy changes. So those are the 5 strategy buckets that we have for each goal. And then underneath those strategies, we've got individual actions. So here's a sample of an action that I took from the consumer debris goal. So by a certain date, by 2025, we want to promote consumer debris research. And then we define what we're talking about. We want more citizen science, more data collection, more surveys, more monitoring, more collection of data at storm drains to understand exactly what's going into our stormwater, and more research to better inform decision makers. So all the actions start with what we propose to do. And then this action, or this plan rather, the Virginia plan, was written in conjunction with the writing of the Mid-Atlantic Marine Debris Action Plan. They were published just within a few months of each other. And so we wanted to make sure that our goals in Virginia mirror, they're not identical, because some things in the Mid-Atlantic don't apply to Virginia and vice versa. But we wanted to make sure that the plans align. And so we show where the plans align. And then we also show which are the organizations that have signed up to assist with those actions. This particular action has lots of partners, as you can see. Excuse me, I need to close the box. This particular action has partners on the county level, on the state level. Ocean Conservancy, which works on the national and international level, has signed up to assist with this, as well as some soil and water conservation districts. So when you download the plan, which I hope you will, and I just put the link in our chat box, but when you download the Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan, you'll see each of the actions and the partner list. If your organization is interested or is already working on some of these actions, you can join as a partner on the actions. This is not a static document that, oh, we did it once, now we're done. So if you take a look at all the actions and say, yes, our group wants to participate in this discussion on this particular action, just let me know. I'll put my email in the chat box in a minute. And we are going to be having semi-annual Zoom calls so that the partners can talk about progress on these actions. So at this point, I want to switch to the actual plan and show you what it looks like. And again, it's downloadable for free from the website that I put in the chat box. It's the publication page for Clean Virginia Waterways. So the actual plan has a lot more detail, which I'm not going to go through at this point because it would take way too long, but I encourage you to look at it. And we put in bold the main point of each action. For example, action 1112, shown here in the middle, the main part of the action is to foster coordination, cooperation, and communication. And actually this group, this network, helps meet that particular goal. So the next one is working on an inventory of litter prevention and marine debris projects. And then on page 17, let me move to page 17. The actions include doing more campaigns to reduce marine debris from specific sources. So if you're interested in working on a campaign to reduce plastic bags as litter, or beverage bottles or cigarette butts, this would be an action you and your group could participate in. And you'll see here, we've got George Mason University as a partner. We've got some regional commissions as partners. Let me see what else. I'm going to go down to, as you see, here's a strategy for research and monitoring with individual actions under it. Here's a strategy for proper disposal, interception, and infrastructure with some actions underneath it. But I want to go down to the legislative one. So here are some policy management, legislation, and enforcement. That's the strategy. And under that, you'll see that some of the goals are to implement the plastic bag fee, help and assist with that. And actually, we have a website which gives information to local governments. which are considering putting a 5-cent fee on single-use plastic bags. So that project is in place. We also want to determine if a statewide fee for plastic bags might be a better approach. So we want to see how many local governments do put in a 5-cent fee. And we did hear during the legislation 2 years ago, we did hear from some retail sales representatives that they would prefer a statewide fee rather than a piecemeal. So, for example, if you were in charge of ordering bags for Kroger's, you would have to keep a list of which counties in Virginia have the 5-cent fee, which do not, which ones need more paper. So sometimes a statewide uniform bill would be preferred. So we've got that in the plan to keep an eye on that and see if that might be something to be pursued in the future. And then other legislation, this is the one I really wanted to get to, is Action 1514, which I just highlighted. By the end of 2025, inform the development of new local and state policies, ordinances, and management plans aimed at source reduction. And you'll see that when we're looking at the different options, again, I just highlighted them, different options include dumpster management ordinances and ordinances that have to do with hauling waste. We know that a lot of trash along our highways comes from the movement of trash trucks and such. Taking a look at implementation of the 5-cent fee, again, on single-use bags, a statewide bottle bill, and extended producer responsibility laws. So this action plan, this reduction plan, in some of the actions is very specific and in others broader, like this one's a fairly broad look at the different ways that we can reduce plastic pollution. So at this point, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and finish up with those slides. So the near-term actions, and I'm basically just going to go through the parts that are in yellow here, but the team, the statewide team that put this together came up with 10 priorities for the next 4 or 5 years. First, provide recommendations to support waste minimization. And this one focuses more on legislation and policies. And another one is facilitate implementation of current laws, including the bag fee, including the helium balloon ban on releasing of helium balloons, and also the phase out of polystyrene. So facilitate those being in place. Other near-term actions include measuring public support. This one I'm really personally very excited about. It will be going out in the next few weeks. And what we're going to be doing is interviewing and surveying more than 800 registered voters in Virginia, asking them about their support for new laws. Because we hear this a lot from politicians and policymakers. They want to know voters care about this topic. So at any rate, we're going to be measuring public support for new laws, new policies. We're also going to be asking people's awareness and concern about plastic pollution. And we're going to ask, who do you trust as a trusted messenger on these topics? So that is very exciting. Another near-term action that we want to implement is to continue to facilitate the collaboration that's already going on, including this network. We also have the Virginia Abandoned and Derelict Vessel Work Group. Also, we will be hosting a Virginia Marine Debris Summit in fall of 2022, most likely late September in the Virginia Aquarium in Virginia Beach. And we, of course, will keep you apprised of that. It will be a great opportunity to collaborate and share. Other near-term actions include financial support for pilot projects. We have some funding to provide about $5,000 per pilot program to implement some of the actions. So when you download the action plan and you take a look at the actions, if your group is working on something that could be a pilot for a larger implementation, please contact me. We've got a couple of pilot programs already underway, starting just in the last month. We're also focusing on removing clam nets. These are nets that are put over baby clams to provide them some protection from predators. But sometimes these nets, which are made out of plastic, become loose on the beaches. So we're working with the industry and government to have a removal program in place for these nets, and also look at a way to recycle them. Another thing that's underway, if you want to get engaged with it, let me know. We're going to be reaching out to the media to ask them to stop covering balloon releases. We actually heard that some people organize balloon releases because they know the media will show up to cover it. So that's a campaign that's actually, we just had a strategy meeting earlier today on that topic. If you want to get engaged, let me know. And then the last 3 near-term actions, priorities, include reusable water bottles at beaches. Right now, there's a group writing a grant with our Mid-Atlantic partners. Our Mid-Atlantic partners include New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware, and DC. And we're writing a grant to provide more refillable water stations at tourist destinations. If you want to get engaged with that project, let me know as well. And then I've already mentioned the Abandoned and Derelict Vessel Work Group, which is coming up with policy recommendations so that we have a plan in place, a program in place to deal with these abandoned boats in our environment. And then finally, always, we're going to continue to want to do monitoring so that we can measure the success of all of these different efforts, and assess how the marine debris and litter issue is tracking here in the state of Virginia. As I said, we're going to be asking partners to keep track of what they're doing and any measurement of success that they have, and we'll be asking them to share through Zoom meetings twice a year. We'll probably have that first set of discussions in February, just next month. I wanted to just reiterate that our plan is linked and aligned with the Mid-Atlantic Marine Debris Action Plan. And there's the cover that's also downloadable. So lots of challenges. We're very excited that Virginia has a plan in place. We encourage you to get engaged with it because there's a lot of challenges coming up. This chart shows a projection of the increase in plastic waste if we continue as we are now. And you see that the projection is for a massive increase in the amount of plastic waste that we will be creating in the United States and worldwide. So we know we can't recycle our way out of this, which is why our plan is so diverse and looks for many, many alternatives to single-use plastics. So just the takeaways, please download the plan. You can get it from our publication page. Please consider having the organizations you work with sign up as partners on some of these actions. And I always make a pitch for this. If you are with a group doing litter removal from your environment or from your beach or a park, anywhere in Virginia, anytime, please consider collecting data through either the International Coastal Cleanups app for the smartphone. It's called Clean Swell. There's other options for collecting data, but the data really were the basis of a lot of the actions in this plan. So we need your data. So thank you very much for sticking with me here for this overview of the Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan. There again is our website. And if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Any questions at all? Just go ahead and turn your microphone on and.
I have a question in terms of, you said there was funding for some projects. Would
Right.
there be funding? I'm hiring an assistant to develop environmental ed programs at our science center. But if we truly develop a great high school activity, or could be middle school, that looks at microplastics, I mean, would that be a thing? You know, something that could travel to schools and they could repeat it and they could go, wow, I never knew this is how this worked.
Yeah, that's a possibility. It would have to, you'd have to take a look at the current Virginia Marine Debris Action Plan and find the action that aligns with your project. And then, you know, give me a call. We can do just a brief talk about
Okay.
the scope of your project, how it aligns. But yeah,
Okay.
and that's the same for anybody. If any of you are working on anything that you see in the action plan, please contact me, because we hopefully will have these small pilot program funding for another 4 years. And we have a limited number every year, but yeah, please contact me. Thank you, Cindy. Any other questions about the Virginia Marine Debris Action Plan?
Hey, Katie, it's Dean. It's not really a question, but we had our annual 4-mile run stream cleanup yesterday. That's the largest stream in Arlington. And for the first time, we asked people to keep track of how many plastic bags and parts of plastic bags they collected. It was a little challenging yesterday. There was slush on the ground, so it was a little
Right.
fairly low turnout. But anyway, we got 219 plastic bags yesterday, and we're hoping to keep track of that in future years and see if the plastic bag tax has any effect on the number we collect.
That's fabulous. I'm so glad to hear you're collecting that data. It's interesting because there's other groups in Fairfax that have been doing the same thing. So I think that's great. If you want to share your data beyond your own county, there are ways through this Clean Swell app, or sharing the data with Clean Virginia Waterways, my organization. We then put all that data on the Ocean Conservancy's database, which is open access. So you can go there today and download data for the last several years from Arlington. It's a really great database. And maybe we'll have I think we did have a presentation about that database previously, and it should be in our recordings. But yeah, I'm so glad to hear you're collecting data. Thank you.
Yeah, I will have to check. We
Any
may
other-
already be sharing that data, but I'll make sure we are.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dean. Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? And let me just check the chat box to see if there's any questions. Okay, so Sarah Kolar from the Ocean Conservancy, she works with the International Coastal Cleanup. She just put into the chat box the link www.coastalcleanupdata.org. And that's where you can go. You make an account, it's free, and then you're able to pick the time frame that you're interested in looking at, the geographic location you're interested in, and you can generate these really wonderful reports. And let me see if there's any other questions. Sarah also put some information on the Clean Swell app that you can get for your smartphone. And it's a great way when you're in the field, you just click the buttons, and when you're done, you enter a little bit more information, like how many volunteers did you have and how many pounds did you pick up, and then bam, you hit send and your data are in that big database. So that's great. So thank you for Sarah for sharing that. Any other questions or thoughts?
Hey, I just said, I mean, it's not to get into the details of this, but I thought it was great to actually have the trash haulers addressed in the plan, because I just feel like that's one of those areas that, we talk about prevention and all of these other measures. And that's just one of those ones where you know that's a bigger input than we seem to focus on from a regulatory standpoint or anywhere else. So, you know, I don't know if you had any comments there yourself along those lines, or whether there's any data. I just not overly aware of, you know, what percentages are attributed to that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Tom, because not only the action I showed that talks about the trash haulers, but there's another action in the plan to look at uncovered loads. So there's a law in Virginia that says you cannot drive a truck, even if it's your little tiny pickup truck or if it's a big commercial truck, you cannot drive a truck legally that has trash coming out the back. But it's, I don't think it's well known, especially with people who just drive, you know, little pickup trucks, that they legally are responsible for covering their load so that they don't have this trash ending up on the roadside. And there is an action specifically looking at that issue. And that would be a great mini grant. If there's an organization that wants to tackle that question, that, you know, I'm thinking talking to county administrators to say, you know, how much do you promote the fact that people should be doing this? I live in a rural community and we have to take our trash to the dump ourselves, or actually it's not the dump. It's a transfer station, and then it transfers to the landfill. And I see all these trucks coming in all the time from private homes that are uncovered loads. And you can see that a lot of the stuff has been bagged, but a lot of the waste has not been put in bags. And so any rate, that would be the type of project, if a group wants to take on coming up with a pilot to educate all truck owners on their responsibilities, how to reach them, you know, other than waste transfer stations, what is a good way to reach truck drivers, people who drive even pickup trucks. Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
One follow-up issue there that just occurred to me while you're talking is really that I see, especially when I'm in coastal areas, that, you know, have a lot of wind. And so you see totes on their sides and, you know, in storms and things all the time. I mean, it's probably, I mean, I actually happen to have a little, you know, when we're at the beach, that is probably the number one litter source, is really the wind knocking over trash cans. I just wish we could figure out ways to develop a better trash can that you know, wouldn't just, you know, once it hits 20 miles an hour, that those lids are off.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that a lot of times when we talk about how we need better waste management, we think of it on not the homeowner or the home level. We think of it as something more commercial. But yes, poorly maintained trash receptacles because of wind or raccoons or dogs or, you know, whatever, that is a source. So that would be another possible little pilot program that we could fund on how to reach homeowners, or it's not just homeowners, obviously, it's citizens of Virginia on their responsibilities for proper waste management from their own homes. And I wanted to point out too, Jessica from the Eastern Shore of Virginia has information on a template they have for Cover Your Load. And there are a lot of programs out there that educate people about Cover Your Load, but do we need a statewide one? And how do we reach the target audience? That's always really key. Any other thoughts, questions? Well, I look forward. Yeah, go ahead.
It's Rick. What type of dumpster information were you looking for? You had something in the, you wanted information on commercial dumpsters, enclosures or something?
No, what we're more talking about is when we talk about waste management, there are issues on the dumpster level, like outside of businesses, outside of apartment buildings, outside of construction sites. So that's a whole world of how can we decrease plastic pollution, litter, marine debris coming from those sources. But we're also saying that waste management isn't just on that commercial level, it's also on the individual level, the home level. And yeah, I take photos all the time, people who take their trash cans down to the curb to be picked up, but the lid's open because it's overflowing. And you know that, if the wind blows, like Tom pointed out, or if an animal gets into it, it's a source. So that's what we're talking about, is trying to think of proper waste management on a big level, on a holistic level, not just commercial.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else? Jump in. Well, I don't hear any more. Let me see if there's any more in the chat. And I did want to say to Dean with the Potomac Sierra Club, that 4-mile run creek stream was the very first cleanup I ever did, which opened my eyes to the amount of plastic, especially small styrofoam plastic. So that stream I credit with basically me switching my career to work on this issue. So I'm glad that you guys are still cleaning that several times a year.
Yeah, unfortunately, it isn't getting any better. And if you're the one who asked me if I'm with the Potomac River Keepers Network, I think you were thinking of Dean Najox. There aren't a lot of deans around, but he's the one other one who's active, and he's one of the leaders in the Potomac River Keeper Network.
Yes, thank you. And I see that we do have Serena from the Potomac River Keeper Network on this call today. And actually, I'll be speaking tomorrow to that group. If you want to hear more about marine debris, I'll be giving pretty much the same overview tomorrow. But yeah, glad to see so much going on in the Potomac watershed. All right, at this point, I'll open it up to anything that anybody wants to share with everybody else about upcoming, whatever, reports you've got coming out or programs or grants you know about. This is the time to share before we wrap up for the day. Just go ahead and go off of mute if you want to speak. I'll point out too that Serena from the Potomac River Riverkeeper Network has just posted a link to tomorrow's presentation. So I think they're still taking people to sign up for that if you're interested. And again, that presentation is tomorrow at noon, and we'll be focusing also on the Virginia Marine Debris Reduction Plan. So thank you for that, Serena. All right, anybody else? I don't see any hands raised. I don't hear from anybody. So I'm going to assume we're all good. And if so, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can join us on February 15th for our next Virginia Plastic Pollution Network meeting. And if you want to speak we have 5-minute slots if you want to speak for 5 minutes. And we've got 20-minute slots. If you've got a larger topic that you would like to share with everybody, just send us an email and we will contact you about speaking to everybody. And as ever, make sure you go to our website and use the forums there to share as well. So last call for any comment from anybody before I say goodbye. Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining us and hope to see you next month. And thank you, Rick, again, for that really interesting bottle bill summary. And will be interesting to track that and other bills for the next 2 months with the Virginia legislature. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.